We're going to try to beat every game mode on 4 circles using the least amount of money possible. We'll start with easy, placing Gwen in the middle and our free dart monkey slightly in front of her so that he can pop any purple balloons heading our way. With that, I hit play, hoping that we wouldn't have to purchase any more monkeys. My only real worry was camo balloons, but not many come before round 40, and Gwen's cocktail would be able to handle most of them. Round 33 was proof of this, as they didn't even get past the spike pile at the end of the track, and we still had 200 lives and a mana shield as a buffer. This brought us to round 40, where we waited to use Gwen's cocktail until the moab was almost popped so that the fire would burn up the balloons inside, and this worked so well that nothing even made it to the end. On to primary monkeys only, where we did the same exact thing. Kind of boring, but beating 2 game modes for $690 each is a steal if you ask me. Next is Deflation, where we brought in Churchill and a dart monkey. I figured this would be a bit rough as we start on round 30, but Churchill's kind of a tank, so how hard could it be? That was my mentality, until round 33 when camo balloons showed up and I panic upgraded the dart monkey to a 023 crossbow to hold them off until Churchill hits level 6 and can pop them on his own. This made the run very easy, as these two mopped the floor with every round that wasn't packed with ceramics or black balloons. But all we had to do was activate Churchill's armor-piercing shells and black balloons became a thing of the past. In fact, this combo took us all the way to round 60 without even losing a life. A little too easy if you ask me. So let's redo that and spend a little less money. This time we won't upgrade the dart monkey to a crossbow and we'll just tank the early camos until Churchill can see them for himself. This was much more difficult, and we went all the way down to 47 lives by the end of round 37. Yikes. Luckily, Churchill got his red goggles before any more camos came, and we were able to build our mana shield back up to its max of 25 lives. Now, to just do exactly what we did last run, and we should be good to go, right? Wrong. One thing that I underestimated was how much help the crossbow was with zebra and black balloons, as we were having to use Churchill's level 3 ability way more now that the dart monkey had to manually throw the darts instead of shooting them. This was so tough, in fact, that I mistimed his ability, causing us to lose in round 52 to a bunch of zebras that we just couldn't pop in time. And with that loss, I hopped into the challenge editor, as that is a much more forgiving place to do silly challenges like this one. Fast forward to round 52 again, and I had actually done a bit worse up to this point, but we were still alive. Barely. 18 lives and a dream, baby. That's all we need. Round 52 caused us some trouble again, but with just one redo, we were not only able to just beat the round, but we somehow popped every single balloon. The magic of timing abilities. Anyway, the stressful gameplay wasn't going anywhere, as rounds 54 and 55 are exclusively filled with ceramics and moabs, both of which are pretty good against our defense if our ability is on cooldown. The first attempt of 54 snuck through, but to take it down, all we had to do was spam our ability and pray. And this was so effective that I did it again for round 55, and it actually worked first try. And with this, we were able to coast all the way through round 60, earning the Deflation medal for only $1,530. Next was just normal medium mode, which in my eyes is just Deflation but easier, as we get experience on Churchill a bit earlier. So I started with our free dart monkey and saved up until round 7 for this $1,800 hero, and he got to work. With this extra XP, Churchill had camo detection by round 33, so we were able to save over 150 lives just like that, giving us a huge buffer for the rest of the run. And we really didn't have any issues, as Churchill just plowed through the rounds and took down that BFB. Now, at this point, I wanted to mix things up and not just use Churchill for this entire video. So I put on Sada and fired up Impoppable. I figured her plus an alchemist would do wonders, as she carries the early game and round 60 isn't too much past that. And overall, this theory was pretty correct, as this cheap defense slaughtered everything until round 40, when the balloons started getting pretty far unless we used her sword leap. This was a crutch that I expected to use, but man did it dry up quick. By round 45, not even Sada's ability was enough to contain the balloons, and Berserker Brew had to be purchased to give Sada a little more oomph to beat the run. Unfortunately, round 49 had other plans, as it was comprised of 7 moabs, which we couldn't even pop with 2 tax bearers on top of what we had. So I had to stoop all the way down to get an overdrive to get us through the horde of blimps that were coming our way. Finally, we had enough to get through the tough spot, and Sada hit level 10, allowing us to sword charge our way through the final few rounds to take down Impoppable. Not our best score, but we'll continue on and try to spend less going forward.
Wait, hang on just a second. The next clip is reverse mode. Did he miss military only? One sec, let me call him. Hey, Josh! Did you forget military only? You buffoon! When can you do it? Waiter's future Josh.
Whoa, future Josh here, and I'm about 4 hours away from going on vacation, and I just realized that we skipped military monkeys only, so I threw on ETN and hopped into 4 circles. I kind of needed to beat this one quick, so I plopped down a Buccaneer and made it a 2-3-0 cannon ship. I assumed that this combo would smoke the rounds, but once again round 55 at other plans, especially since UCAV was on cooldown. I tried timing ETN's drone swarm several times to no avail, but then I had a genius idea. What if I bought a base sniper monkey and set it to strong? This brings a surprising amount of utility against ceramics because of the ceramic shock monkey knowledge point, which makes snipers slow down ceramics with every shot. This was a bit of a Hail Mary, but it worked incredibly well and let us move on with 91 lives, and this was more than enough to take down round 60. But with that, I'm leaving for vacation, and you guys can go back to footage that has a face cam. Next up was Reverse, and we threw on Quincy as he has good damage to every type of bloon, and we paired him with a Wall of Fire wizard to help out with any thick rushes. This worked wonderfully, until it fell apart in the 40s. Starting in round 47, the combo of camos and ceramics were just too much for us. Even with spamming abilities, I realized that we were not going to beat this for a reasonable price, and we hopped back over to Churchill to do the same thing we did for medium standard. I mean, it should be just about the same, or so I thought. For whatever reason, Reverse was much tougher and I couldn't get a Dart Monkey and Churchill to work out. Whether it was the opposite direction or the different order of balloons, something was causing us to fail. So after too many attempts, I caved and went back to the Churchill crossbow combo, and even that leaked all the way down to 84 lives, but we did manage to get the dub and finish the medium difficulties. Now all that's left is the hard half. For hard standard, we brought in ETN so we could skip expensive forms of camo detection, and we paired him with a Monkey Pirate. This guy has great damage with his 6 cannons, and his hook will help us a ton with the reinforced BFBs that come in the 70s. This was pretty smooth sailing until we hit round 63 for the first time this challenge. Normally 63 isn't too bad, but when you're trying to save as much money as possible, it gets a bit tougher, and it absolutely smoked us even though our abilities were up and ready. It was the 3rd rush that we just couldn't cover. So we did what any sane man would do, and we got a 0-2 wizard for that nice Wall of Fire. This let us save UCAV for the final 2 waves of ceramics, and we got through without even breaking our spike pile. We continued on, and round 77 was our next big shock. We had to use UCAV right at the end of the round to take down all of those moabs, and by some miracle, it lasted just long enough to get a few shots in on the first rush of ceramics on round 78. Without that, there's no way we would have popped them, but I'll admit it, we got pretty lucky. This let us use UCAV again for the 2nd rush and move on to round 79. This round was much less stressful as we just rotated between Hook, Drone Swarm, and UCAV to pop everything, with their cooldowns able to refresh when the ZOMG came in on round 80. All I did was wait for its outer layer to be almost popped before activating every ability, and we crushed the ZOMG. On to Magic Monkeys only, and I'll admit it, this one was pretty funny. Once again, we ran ETN as he's one of the best least cost heroes, and then we got a 1-3-0 Dragon's Breath Wizard. This absolutely carried, and we didn't even need abilities until round 60 when I popped a Drone Swarm for the BFB. Probably not needed, but I had to get my head in the game for the upcoming rounds. One of which was round 62, as it's chock full of purple balloons that were absolutely destroying our wizard. Nothing a little UCAV can't fix, but we kind of need that ability for round 63. Because of this, I upgraded our wizard to a summoned Phoenix, who let us get through round 63 only leaking a few lives. For the next 10 rounds or so, we just spammed Phoenix and melted balloons, but round 75 actually put up a fight, making us try again. This time, we made sure to activate Drone Swarm right away, and then saved UCAV until the last BFB had spawned, so its leftover duration could be spent popping the massive round 76 rush. This worked flawlessly. The combination of Phoenix and UCAV was too much for the balloons, and we cruised straight through the round 80 ZOMG. This brings us to double HP moabs, and I was sick of using ETN at this point, so we had to put on the best hero in the game, Kaiju Pat Fusty. I knew this would be tricky as he can't hit camos on his own, so we had to pair him with something that could pop every type of camo balloon. Our first thought was a Rocket Storm Dartling Gunner, hoping that its ability would be able to counter the ceramic rushes. This kind of worked, but camos were a problem the entire game, and this eventually failed on round 67 to Fortified Camo regen ceramics while Rocket Storm was on cooldown. Annoyed with camos, we switched over to Sada and got a Dartling Gunner in the bottom left. We knew Sada would struggle a ton with the double HP blooms coming later on, so we upgraded the Dartling all the way to a Plasma Accelerator. A bit pricey, but it combos well with Sada as that laser shock lets her do more damage to affected balloons. This combo was so strong in fact that we didn't even leak a balloon, and the only reason that our spike pile was gone at the end was because a BFB nicked it on the way into the map on round 77. Though this required way more micro than I'd like, it was very effective and we moved on to half cash. Luckily for us, half cash doesn't affect us too much as we're trying to save absurd amounts of money anyway. Additionally, this was a new day, so we were no longer sick of ETN and we went back to the savings well of using him for cheap camo detection. This time though, we opted for a 320 Buccaneer as this destroyer is incredibly efficient at popping balloons for how cheap it is, and then we got an overdrive in the center to handle any blimps coming our way. This worked great until, you guessed it, round 63, where we just didn't have what it took to beat the third wave without a UCAV. Now there were probably tons of solutions, but we opted for a 200 Alchemist on the tack shooter as the acidic mixture dip gives extra damage to these ceramics as well as letting it pop lead. Additionally, if we needed more help in the future, we could upgrade it to a Berserker Brew. This worked great and actually carried us all the way to the end. Kind of funny that the upgrade needed to beat 63 was enough to carry us through round 80. But after that was ABR, one of the harder difficulties in my opinion, so naturally we completely switched up styles and threw in Psy as they haven't been able to participate yet. We were able to get Psy down on round 4 as our free Dart Monkey beat round 3 for us, and then we backed Psy up with a Dartling Gunner in the middle. This seemed good at the time, but chat and I forgot that leads come so early in this game mode, giving us quite the fright. Luckily, the spike pal at the end popped the lead layer and Psy was able to clean up most of their innards before they leak. You'd think that I'd learned my lesson from this and get down some lead popping power, but instead I prayed that Psy would hit level 6 quickly, and I upgraded our Dartling Gunner to a 022 with the intention of making it a BADS in the future. Obviously went wrong as round 23 has 4 more lead balloons, so we panic bought an Alchemist to handle them. This didn't help with round 24 camo lead balloon, but at least we could upgrade it to an acidic mixture dip later on if needed. But for now, we focused on upgrading the Dartling Gunner, and once it had buckshot, things got much easier. That group damage plus ceramic knockback was very helpful, especially with Psy cleaning up the stronger balloons. This actually let us save all the way up for a balloon area denial system pretty easily, which took its power to another level. This would have smoked hard standard, but ABR is a different beast. I had to manually aim it, dodging all the lead balloons as they just ate up this thing's pierce, and use a ton of abilities just to scrape by the rounds. I mean, look at round 75 and how insanely close the balloons got to the exit. How Psy's Scream and the BADS knockback were able to save us there, I will never know, but this happened too many times for it to just be luck. I don't know if this is standard for the BADS or if I just had that streamer RNG, but right after round 75, we had a crazy round 76, whose ending might have been even more terrifying. Now, we did get a break as round 77 and 78 were easy, but let me tell you, 79 wasn't, and we had to use an early Scream and salvage it with a stun. But like we discussed before, round 80 is nice and slow, so we can wait for abilities to come off cooldown. And that's exactly what we did. We popped the ZOMGs one at a time, letting the abilities come back between pops, and ABR was no more. Whew. Only 2 more difficulties to go, and Impoppable is first. We went back to Churchill as his damage output is unmatched, and we opened with a Dart Monkey Tack Shooter combo. This let us save up for Churchill, placing him down on round 14. This will be nice as the higher level he is, the less we'll have to spend in order to win. We quickly followed this up with a 024 Wizard that'll shimmer the camos for the tack shooter as well as countering any rushes in the near future. This was a nice boost in popping power and let us upgrade our tack shooter to a 204 Overdrive that'll rip the blimps apart. But now we had to decide. Would we rather upgrade the Wizard to a Prince of Darkness or the Overdrive to a Tack Zone, as there is no way I'm going to spend the money to upgrade them both. So would we rather have the Tack Zone's crazy blimp damage or the pod's reliable super ceramic cleanup and DDT defense? We went with the latter as we won't be buffing the tack shooter with the villager alchemist, making the prince much better. And this upgrade actually carried us all the way to round 98 before we ran into any trouble at all. Unfortunately, this was a lot of trouble as we leaked a few hundred super ceramics, but that's nothing we can't handle, right? I mean, we'll just mess around with where the pod spawns his reanimated balloons and we'll see if we can do a little better. Fast forward 15 minutes of heartbreaking attempts and this is is what we came up with. We'll start with the zombies at the bottom of the track so they can build up a nice wall of damage for when the blimps are on screen. Then, once Churchill's moab barrage starts breaking down the blimps and the ceramics start to get through, we'll move the spawner slightly to the right, which will make the zombies go left and pop the ceramics while not wasting much of their pierce on the blimp. Finally, once we use moab barrage again, we'll move the spawner all the way to the right to clean up anything that gets through. And just like that, round 98 is taken care of. And then round 99 blew right through us. With no abilities off cooldown, it was clear that we needed to add a monkey. We tried a snowstorm, a moab shove, and a moab glue, but nothing was working. That is until we started to move the moab glue around. We needed it early enough to hit all the DDTs, but late enough so that the pod had time to shimmer all of them so they become visible. After a few placements in pod micro, we were able to pop them all. And as you could expect, round 100 was a doozy as well, but the classic solution of a spike storm was enough to take it down in the end. And now only chimps is left. Now I do know what the least cost chimps record looks like, and I'll put it on the screen, and we're going to try to emulate that. But to not make it a direct copy, I ran a Zealy instead of Geraldo, and I figured this would have a ripple effect, causing me to buy some other monkeys. And boy was I right. To start, we had to pick up a 300 submarine because we didn't have any camo potions to use before we got our ice monkey up and running. Then it was the same until round 82, where we didn't have the popping power to take down the super ceramics, so we added a glue strike. This worked great and actually let us get all the way to round 95, where we had to upgrade it to a glue storm to pop all the DDTs. This got us to round 98, where we got stuck again. And then I realized something. I'm not going to struggle to get through this round when I didn't purchase all my upgrades under a discount village. So we restarted with a slightly better plan in mind. We essentially did the same thing, but we rushed a 002 village right after getting a tack sprayer. Then after the second tack sprayer, we got our embrittlement for plenty of camo detection, which let us skip the sub. Then we worked our way back up to the same setup as before, but we saved over $1,000. But just like last time, we got hard stuck on run 98. So we had to buy a downdraft heli pilot to stop any super ceramics from leaking, and after a few tries, we managed to get by. But just like the Impoppable run, the reinforced DDTs were a bit too tanky. Luckily, we knew that we'd need a spike storm for round 100, so we placed one near the end of the track and barely took down the round, but we did not need any extra defenses to beat round 100. $66,625 to beat chimps on 4 circles. Not even close to the record, but also not bad for trying to spice things up with a Zealy. But there we go, we black bordered 4 circles for only $229,960. If you liked this video, you should check out my black border speedrun right here.